Briefing of the spokesman for anti-terrorist operation, Colonel Andriy Lysenko. The floor is yours. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Yesterday, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine has adopted the law of Ukraine on changing some laws of Ukraine on the refusal of Ukraine to affect the non-block policy. It was in such a way the Ukrainian law now does not have the clause on the non-block status of Ukraine, and the Ukrainian people have regained their sovereign right to join military and political unions, alliances. Same opinion was voiced by the General Secretary of UN, who said that Ukraine, as any sovereign country, has the full right to decide its own future, not heeding the interests of Russia. On the 14th day of the silence regime in the east of Ukraine, there were again armed provocations on the part of terrorists, and the most outstanding fact is the shelling by the gunmen of the road checkpoint of National Guard from multiple rocket launchers. Grad at the crossroads Zolote-Orekhovo-Girske, also the traditionally tense pieces of land points are Donetsk Airport, settlement Pisky, city Debaltseve, and Stanitsa Luhanska. We have not sustained any dead, but 2 Ukrainian military were wounded. In the village of Zholte, Slovyanosarsk district of Luhansk region, the terrorists have mined the fields along the perimeter of the settlement. We call upon the local population to be cautious and not to try to demine this land on their own, and also to warn their kids of the danger. At the same time, within the framework of international cooperation, over the last month, the Ukrainian engineers were perfecting their skills on the military base of the training center in the city of Martin, Slovakia. And the Ukrainian pyrotechnics were acquainted with the experience of Slovak colleagues, and everybody in the world knows the experience of Slovakia in producing military machinery that helps to demine minefields of different levels.
Okay. Intelligence activity of the enemy is not reducing. 4 drones were noticed yesterday near Sartana, Donetsk region, and 2 drones not far from Krasnotalievka and Luhansk region. On occupied territories, militants without success are trying to install to have one government in Makivka, Donetsk region. The effects of military conflicts between Chechens and local militants because of the distribution of spheres of influence on controlled territories, and that brings to the worsening of the situation in the city. We confirm the information that at enterprises in Donetsk region that are under the control of militants, they produce weapons and mortars, for example, for terrorist groups. They started to produce them. Ukraine provides more assistance to people in the area of the conflict, and Burgas allowed the humanitarian cargo from Red Cross for people in Luhansk region. That charity activity was done according to in compliance with Ukrainian and international humanitarian law, and complying with all the procedures and with full documents. In trucks, there were food, medicine, and hygiene items, and everyday items of everyday needs. There were 8 trucks with 28 tons of items. And in Kramatorsk, Donetsk region, IDPs received humanitarian assistance, humanitarian aid from Charity Foundation International Association to support Ukraine, and a group of coordination of civic military cooperation of armed forces of Ukraine, and items for children and adults, and also sheets and blankets, two trucks with food and hygiene items for kids up to 3 years that were provided to Severodonetsk and also to Shestya. I would like to remind you that during the last week, this is the seventh town in Donbass where Ukrainian officers deliver humanitarian aid.
In Kostantinovka district of Donetsk region, they continue to distribute help from the department on the issues of civil defense mobilization and defense work of the Donetsk Regional State Administration, and 315 packages of baby food was distributed to mothers from among the IDPs and also among the families that are now in dire straits. The European community is united in their opinion about the necessity to continue sanction pressure against the Russian aggressor. And because of the constant violation of the silence regime by terrorists, the Minister of Finance of Germany, Wolfgang Schäuble, said that despite the financial crisis in Russia, the sanctions of EU against Russia have to remain in action. The annexation of Crimea and the constant violation of silence regime in Ukraine cannot be left without response. Do you have any information about what's the situation in Donetsk airport, and also do you have any information on the firing of the 16 dead among the Pskov commandos in the vicinity of the Donetsk airport? We are still checking this information about Russian commandos being fired upon. We still don't have the confirmation for this. I told you about the Donetsk airport. It was shelled traditionally, but there were no attacks. So we can say that this is a chaotic character of firing against our guys in Donetsk airport with provocative force aims. Timchuk has written in the morning that new Russian contract soldiers came to Donetsk, 100 of them to Petrovsky district of Donetsk, 400 to Snizhne, and 5 armored vehicles were moved to the vicinity of Bakhmutivka highway. What can you say about this? We do have information that there is movement of personnel and that Russian mercenaries are arriving to the territory that is now controlled by the gunmen, but the specific number of mercenaries and armored vehicles, we are still verifying it. Overall, during the last 24 hours, the silence regime was observed or not. If there's at least one provocative firing or shelling, then the silence regime was not preserved on the part of the terrorists. Ukrainian military are sticking to the regime, demonstrating our determination to fulfill the Minsk agreements. About the drones, where they were detected, and I wonder whether they were downed by our military. It is not very easy to down a drone because they are small in size, and as a rule they work at the height of 1,000 meters or even higher, and usual small firearms cannot damage this drone, and there are not always anti-aircraft artillery where they are. Besides, they can also conduct their observation not just from in vertical regime, but also diagonally. Yes, there are cases when we manage to down those drones, but at the moment we see that the reconnaissance activity, including the southern direction, has become more active. No more questions. Thank you, everybody. See you later.